Sean had yet to recover from his shock. "I told you to keep up, didn't I?" A low voice squeezed out between his teeth. Without knowing when, Heine had come back, supporting himself with one hand on the ground and holding a blade in another. With a light swing, the zombie was hurled off like garbage, causing a loud crash when it smashed against a distant wall. This guy had obviously been far off. What kind of speed was it that let him appear so suddenly? Heine's side profile was all Sean could see then. He had a softness around his eyes, whereas the arch of his brows and the bridge of his nose were, by contrast, hard and frigid. As though a preacher of God who was needless of human emotions. "Get up." With a swing of Heine's arm, a keen and beautiful arc sliced through the air, cutting his sight in half. Sean gulped and chased after Heine. Mark had already gone into the nuclear power plant with Captain White. They were heading to the innermost part of the ruin where the untouched raw materials of uranium were stored. However, they were unsure if this location had been disclosed in the past 200 years. Numerous zombies were attracted to this place and the blade in Heine's hand was killing endlessly. His movements were quick and agile, and every angle his blade slashed through was so accurate as though they were calculated in precision. A preciseness that could make a person's blood run cold. Mark forcefully kicked open the door that leads into the nuclear power plant and the rusty metal let out a loud screech. Captain White nearly tumbled to the ground in shock. "I thought you said not to make any noise that could lead them here?" Mark glared at Sean before pulling out the respirator hanging from his waist. He stuffed the respirator onto Captain White's face and dragged him inside by his collar. Sean turned to Heine. Heine reached a hand out to him with a similar respirator dangling from his index finger, swaying woefully in the air. Sean took the respirator and before he could say his thanks, Heine turned away and kicked the door close. It seemed that Heine had no intention to put on the mask. The only source of light was shut off and everything was plunged into darkness. Sean chased after Heine quickly. The electricity of the building had long since been terminated and the confined space seemed to be pervaded by some unknown energy. Heine drew out a light emitter from his waistband and the passage was lightened up once again. The light emitter hovered above their heads and continued exploring ahead. Gradually, numerous corpses were scattered on the ground in a twisted form. A moment of discomfort pricked Sean's heart. He somewhat felt that these corpses weren't humans, but zombies. Opening layers and layers of doors, they entered the reaction center of the power plant. Everything in here was old and worn out. Sean missed his footing and fell off the ladder. He landed on the ground hard with his face covered in dust. He winced in pain while getting up from the ground, and when he raised his head, he saw Heine looking down at him coldly. Sean felt a surge of anger, but he did not have the chance to flare up under the sense of oppression from Heine. Sean stood up despite the throbbing pain from his arms and legs. Heine and Mark did not have the slightest intention to wait for him. They continued ahead. At last, they arrived at the most concealed area of the nuclear power plant, the storage of the uranium raw materials. Looking at the device that was a lookalike of steering, Sean recognized that it was a safe vault at first sight. "Hey, open it up." Mark dragged Captain White towards the vault door. Captain White was stupefied for a moment and drew a step back. "This is too antiquated. Everything is information-oriented and network-based now, without a terminal to operate. I don't know how to open this door as well." "What? You good for nothing?" Mark was about to punch his fist onto Captain White's face. "Mark." Heine only called him once and Mark's fist halted in mid-air. "Oh come on. I thought you technical soldiers are so amazing. I should have fed you guys to the zombies." "Boss, what do we do now? Should we blast open this thingy? There's uranium on the other side of the door, what to do then?" Mark's eye rested on Sean. "Hey. Rookie. What about you?" Sean tried to retain a safe distance with Mark. "Unlock the door," a short and commanding tone, as though he firmly believed that Sean could do it. "Yes. Colonel. Damn it, you think I can open it just because you say so?" "Yeah, I would love to unlock it too, but I'm not sure if I have that ability. There were plenty of senior apprentices in that aircraft and why do you have to drag me, of all people, into this?" Despite his endless grievance in the depth of his heart, Sean did not dare to show a slightest displeasure on his face. In fact, he was jittering. Sean forced himself to stand before the door and started examining it attentively. This thing was probably controlled numerically 200 years ago, but now all the power had broken down. To open it, we have to connect it to a power supply. "Do you have a wireless terminal and a power supply unit?" "Yeah." Mark threw a bag to Sean. This was left behind by the two dead technical soldiers. The only remains of them after being torn apart were their bones and this backpack. "The stuffs that you want are probably in there." Sean broke out in a cold sweat inside. He did not understand why does Mark have to explain to him in such details. He did not have a slightest interest to know the last moments of the two soldiers. Sure enough, Sean found the power supply and the wireless terminal that were prepared for this mission as he unpacked the bag. After some exploration on the devices, Sean had a brief idea on the connecting point for the power supply. Mark truly had superhuman strength. He actually torn off the plate iron from the vault door and revealed the antiquated electrical wire. Sean then stripped off the wires with tools before carefully connecting them with the external power supply. "Hey, did you learn this from the academy?" Captain White wondered why Sean was accustomed to such ancient power supply system. "Of course not. I occasionally saw this on the historical readings from the library. However, it's been so many years. I'm not sure if this door will activate even if it's connected to the power source. The only thing left to do now is to test the door's password with the terminal." Sean connected the password sensor of the door with the wireless terminal and started calculating. "We've got the password." Sean read out the numbers while Mark turned the vault handle. First there was a screech, followed by a cloud of dust, as though an untouched moment was unveiled silently. On the other side of the door was almost like a black hole. The light emitter flew in and lightened up the whole space. Mark was the first to enter. Captain White was hesitant, but still, he followed Mark into the storage room. Heine gave Sean a cold glance and Sean quickly lifted the backpack and went after him. There were countless metal boxes within the storage room. Heine scanned through the boxes with a scanner and nodded at Mark. There was a special device within each of these metal boxes that ensured the stability of the uranium raw materials. And because of this, the boxes were secured in position, preventing them from being lifted. "Hey! Technical soldiers! Do something!" Seeing Mark's hand that was about to slap on his back, Sean ducked away quickly. If he were to be hit by this guy, Sean had no doubt that his spine would break. He never had the wild ambition to pursue for thrills and excitements. What he had always wanted from the bottom of his heart was to live an idle and peaceful life, except for a little excessive curiosity. "Could you get rid of this pile of boxes quickly?" Sean turned around when he heard the cracking sound coming from Mark's knuckles. He looked back subconsciously and saw the lofty stance of Heine. If he does not want to be killed, he would have to resolve the problem in hand quickly. Sean crouched on the ground instantly and started examining the device that secured the metal box in place. And after scanning through them, he confirmed that these special devices that sustained the uranium raw materials were removable and the metal boxes only functioned as storage. He plugged in the securing device of the metal box with the power source and prepared to stimulate the removal process. After some exploration, Sean finally found a way. "It'll be done soon." It turned out that Sean was not so lucky lately, or should he say, he's having a real rotten luck. Sean was feeling tired from the long crouching posture, and as he tried to stand up sideways, in the next second, his neck was strangled by a hand and his whole body was lifted. Sean clutched on the strong and powerful wrist, and only then he realized that the thing he brushed against just now was Heine's lips. For a moment, his icy cold eyes were filled with murderous intent. Sean's larynx was about to be fractured by him. Boss, we haven't completed our mission yet. This fellow can't die." Mark darted forward and wanted to pry open the fingers that were strangling Sean's throat. However, he did not even dare to touch Heine the moment he stood before him. Sean bellowed in his heart. For once, he found Mark helpful. Just as Sean closed his eyes resignedly, Heine threw him to the ground. Half a side of his body collided with the floor, causing tremendous pain in his shoulder. He pressed his hand onto his throat and coughed vigorously with tears in his eyes. The sound of blade being unsheathed was sounded by his ears. "If you fail to retrieve these uranium raw materials, I will cut open your flesh and pull out your bones alive." Every single word that Heine said was clear and concise, as though it was a message from hell. Sean gasped in fright and his fingers could not stop trembling. He suddenly realized that the existence of this man was far more terrifying than zombies. "Hey! Get up quickly, or do you wish to die so badly?" Mark hauled Sean up from the ground, pushed him towards the pile of metal boxes and said in a lowered voice, "You're quite bold. Even have the guts to kiss our boss? He's famous for being a clean freak." Sean could not utter a word. This was all because of Heine not wearing a respirator mask, Sean thought. If he had worn the mask, he would not have brushed against Heine's lips. For sure he did not wish to have his bone pulled out of his body alive by Heine, so he kept quiet. Captain White, who had just recovered from the shock on the happening just now, rushed over to Sean's side to help. A few minutes passed, a first securing device was removed and Mark took out a container in the size of a vacuum flask from the metal box. Sean and Captain White let out a sigh of relief and retrieved the remaining raw uranium with the same procedure. Mark carried them onto his back and they prepared to head out. Sean was perturbed. Since that little incident until now, Heine has been looking at him with murderous rage. He was seriously worried that Heine would leave him to the zombies during their way out of the power plant. However, no matter how helpless Sean felt, he still had to leave this place with Heine. As expected, countless zombies were sprawling across the door when Mark kicked open the vault door with full force. Heine drew out his dual blades and several streaks of light flashed before their eyes. The zombies' heads fell off, one after another. All the way, Sean was stepping across the gooey carcasses of the zombies as they broke out of the encirclement. The waves of zombies were endless, and Sean had to dodge from side to side while covering his head with his arms. Thankfully, Mark dragged him away in time, or he did not dare to think what a tragic death he would have suffered. At last, they arrived beneath the hovering aircraft. Heine activated the device on his waistband and a wire sprung towards the sky and attached onto the aircraft. He then gripped onto the wire and leapt back into the cabin effortlessly. Sean froze. What about him? It was Heine who brought him down here at the beginning, and now this guy had abandoned him? Mark let out a sigh. Seeing another wave of zombies closing in, he scooped Captain White up in one hand and gripped onto the wire in another. Hey! Rookie! Grab hold of my arm. Sean acted as if he saw his only salvation. He bolted towards Mark's and clung to his arm. And then a whoosh, they shot up into the air with great speed. Sean clung tightly onto Mark because with just a slight slackening on his grip, he would end up as minced meat on the ground. Finally back into the cabin, he kneeled on the cabin floor in exhaustion, huffing and puffing. Reeve came out from the cockpit and helped him up with a wide grin on her face. Hey! I heard that you did something nobody dared. Sean's arms were shaking uncontrollably from the muscle strain. Feeling haggard, he leaned against the chair to catch his breath. It was just a coincidence. If possible, please stop reminding me about that incident. I see. Reeve her eyebrows ambiguously, who knows? Sean tried to stop Reeve's imagination from running wild, but to no avail. Reeve leaned closer to him with bright eyes, looking distinctly different from her previous sober and reserved demeanor, like a gossip queen. Sean doubted that Heine Burton will accept anyone else aside from himself. Still, Reeve's imaginations continued to run wild, and this time, she even led Sean's thoughts into an unrealistic notion. Well, you know that the X-virus has increased the desires of Special Force soldiers. In Sean's point of view, the eager look on Reeve's face was filled with malice. Reeve burst into laughter. Sean finally came back to his senses. She was making fun me. The aircraft would be landing on a certain platform, preparing to unload the raw uranium, whereas Sean and others would be transiting to another aircraft on this platform. Reeve made contact with the tower and they would be landing on the designated location. Just when they were closing into the platform, the aircraft elevated abruptly. Sean gripped onto the safety handrail. Their elevating speed increased so drastically that all of the students nearly screamed out loud. What's happening? Sean knew that Mark and Heine were the pilot of the aircraft. Could it be? Their aircraft was infiltrated by the interruptor again? An interruptor is a brain hacker who infiltrates humans' brain through the terminal. They are skilled in disrupting people's cognition, destroying the brain's internal messaging system, and even creating cognitive maze that could entrap the host in his own subconscious and fall into deep coma. Nearly every Special Force soldiers had gone through a strict training in defending the interruptor, and Sean was positive that Heine is the ace amongst all. With his strong willpower, he was certainly not someone who would be assaulted by the interruptor easily. The aircraft was about to soar into the distant sky. And all of a sudden, Sean felt the aircraft juddering under his feet. The aircraft did a high-speed circle, as a missile flew by Sean's side window. This missile was launched from the platform behind them. It was a guided missile that could steer in flight until it hits its target. Oh, God! It's a guided missile. We're dead. The cabin fell into terror. Sean leaned against the chair, feeling despairing. He did not even have the energy to force a smile. It had just been a day. How many times does he need to go through all of these miseries? What is this? Was he doomed to die? We're gonna die. Oh God. Why don't they eject us out from the aircraft? Perhaps we could survive. Some of the apprentices even started crying. Morons. You want us to eject all of you out to feed the zombies? Reeve glowered at them. You think the one driving the aircraft is some weak and frail fellow? Or have you forgotten that is ours, the Special Task Force's aircraft? It's not meant for research, it's meant for combat. Sean had already lost count on the missile that had flown by their engine, and the times his face felt the heat emitting from the missile. However, the aircraft always managed to evade the missile in the moment of extreme peril. There were cold sweats trailing down Sean's forehead. His classmates around him closed their eyes and bit their lips, waiting silently for their last moment to come. The cabin they were in continued to whirl, and Sean felt that his neck was about to snap from the swirl. In front of him was Reeve, who had been well reserved and calm from the beginning until now. She has complete faith in Heine and Mark. You can close your eyes too, Reeve looked at Sean, or you'll get dizzy easily. I just want to see that moment. Colonel Burton and Mark will find the opportunity to get rid of that guided missile. Then it was another 720-degree turn, but this time, the apprentices didn't even have the energy to cry out an alarm. What opportunity? Reeve asked him out of curiosity. Her calmness formed a sharp contrast with the others. Time lag. Sean's eyes lowered. He is a B-rank student, just because he was too lazy to think. For he understands that the more a person is skilled in thinking, the more tiring life he will live. However, that did not mean that he was weak in thinking. At that instant, the engine of their aircraft let out a blaring sound and zoomed towards a mountain peak. Screams rang through the cabin. Sean, however, has his eyes wide opened. The moment before they came into contact with the mountain peak, the aircraft shifted its direction instantly and shot up perpendicularly, trailing across the mountain and towards the sky. The extreme speed has created a friction between the air beneath the aircraft and the trees of the mountain, leading to a blaze. But the guided missile wasn't so lucky. It hit directly onto the mountain, crushing the mountain into pieces. That second was a magnificent sight. Sean placed his palms on the window glass, feeling the tremor of the explosion. Everyone took a deep breath and some even burst into tears. We're still alive. Thank God. We actually escaped from the guided missile. Once again, they have brushed with death. However, Reeve remained vigilant, boss. That platform just now, it's been taken over by the Tidal Organization, isn't it? Tidal Organization, a mysterious organization that conducts relentless research on the comet virus. Their base, population, and even the leader of the group remain unknown. There was only one thing for certain: this organization is their enemy. Yes. Send out warning messages back to Charles and every other external bases. The stated platform was a supply station for long-flight aircrafts. No research institutions were established within, but it has been a target of the Tidal Organization in recent years. They remained submerged after they seized the platform and took the opportunity to attack the aircrafts that landed for resupply. How did Colonel Burton notice there was something wrong with that platform? Sean asked in curiosity. Reeve gave him an unpredictable smile. When you've been passing through countless gaps between deaths, your instinct will become a weapon as well. And at that moment, the aircraft was gradually descending. What's happening? There's nothing nearby, isn't it? Why are we landing? There are neither platform nor base here. Maybe the Special Task Forces has another mission to complete? Everyone turned to Reeve with a puzzled look on their face. Yet, Reeve questioned Sean with a smile, have a guess, what's happening?